Okay, good morning, everyone, to Sunday Stretch. I'm Jen, and today's class, as always, is going to be centered around the use of our 6-foot stick, and I also have some yoga blocks and a yoga strap. So with that, let's get started. We're going to get started with some brief ankle work. So we're going to plant the stick into the ground and extend the stick away from our body with a straight arm. And the grip on our stick is going to be slightly below our shoulders. So you can see a nice angle here. And we're going to grasp with 2 hands, and our feet are just slightly more distant than our hips. Draw in your belly button and begin to lift one ankle at a time. You're peeling that left foot up off the ground, pausing at the top, really fully contracting through the arch of your foot. And back down. We try and go through 5 or 6 repetitions on each ankle. And if you notice, my head and my shoulders are staying nice and level, and my knee is driving forward into space, into flexion. And the use of my stick on the ground is helping to stabilize and initiate my core engagement. I'm not ever leaning into the stick. I'm using it to help fire into my core. Okay, next, I'm going to turn and face you this way. Now we're going to work in circles. So I'm pressing from pinky toe to big toe, inner heel or side of the foot to my heel and outside of my foot. Working through that full mobility of my ankle. And this might not feel very comfortable. You might hear a lot of cracking going on. Okay, change directions. But we're really working through the muscles in our feet, making sure they have good blood flow and are able to do their job. Okay, switch to the other side. And really try and drive that heel up as high as you can. As you work through the circles, we're going to do both clockwise and counterclockwise. And here again, notice your shoulders should be staying level and your core engaged. Pressing your stick through the mat. Good, okay, now we'll get out wide. Now when we're out wide like this is sometimes called horsey stance when you hold it. And now we're gonna work on just peeling one heel at a time up and staying level. So up and down, up and down. Staying level, just driving that flexion into our knee. And now we're gonna do it simultaneously in opposition. So up, down, up, down. And again, staying nice and level. Working through long inhales and exhales. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, good. You should be feeling some good blood flow in the feet, in your calves. Go ahead and shake those legs out now a little bit if you like. Now we are going to do our side to side walks. So go ahead and put the stick out in front. I like to do palms up like I'm walking a tightrope. And I'm just going to lift heels and toes, walking from side to side simultaneously and back. And try and make those steps as big as you can, reaching as far away from heel to toe as you're able to do. Okay, coming back to center. Now plant your feet nice and close. And now they're going to walk away from each other. Nice and wide. Pause in this position where you feel like you're nice and wide. Push the insides of your feet into the ground to engage your inner thighs. And now slowly start walking your feet back in toward the center. Okay, nice job. Let's do that again. We're gonna work toward a little bit wider of a stance as we're able. Okay, nice and wide. Press the inner soles of the feet into the mat, engage those inner thighs, and then draw heel to toe back to the middle. Good. All right, shake it out. Now we're gonna do some arm work. Okay, so the stick is very useful. Even if we had a shorter stick, it would be pretty useful to help stretch the muscles in our inner arms, the rotator muscles, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna plant our feet into the ground and we're gonna grasp the stick right in the middle, okay? And extend it away from our body. So here's your angle, straight out from the shoulder, nice strong grip. Now the first thing I'm gonna do is called casting. So I'm gonna push the head of the stick out and away from me. I'm gonna try and keep as strong a grip on the stick as I can. And I'm gonna pull the head of the stick back toward my ear and extend out and away again. So it's called casting because it looks, or should remind you a little bit like fishing. Okay, I'm gonna show you the side view. And I kind of use my opposite arm to help bring it back in toward my ear because it's really tricky to do. Just be mindful of keeping that arm as straight as you're able and your grip as strong as you can maintain. So try and keep that pinky finger firmly grasped on the stick. And after 7 or 8 of these, then you'll start feeling the muscles in the forearm as they work. That's our target here. Good. Okay, let's switch sides. So now I have the stick in my right hand. Grip is centered, extended away from my armpit, and I'm gonna cast the head of the stick away, straight line, and then return back toward my ear. So here we have the side view. Cast away and return. See, that is my non-dominant side, and I can tell that my elbow wants to bend just a little bit more there, but I'm doing my best to keep it straight. Now this arm work isn't easy. So don't feel frustrated that it's harder than you think it might be, because it is kind of a difficult thing to do, particularly if it's your first or only second time doing this. One more. Okay, good. Now the next movement we're gonna do, so that was kind of the first, we'll go through a sequence of 3. The next one will be called stirring the pot. So stirring the pot, we initiate with that same movement of extending the wrist out from the armpit and then gripping the stick at the midpoint and maintaining that grip. You're gonna start with making small circles. And we call this stirring the pot because you're visualizing that you have a tiny little pot down at the bottom. But you really, in order to get the most benefit out of this movement, you want to maintain a tight grip. And here, as opposed to most times in strength training, we talk about we want no wrist flexion. Here, this is all about wrist flexion. And starting nice and small with a straight arm and engage lat to oblique, then you work your way up to bigger and bigger circles as you are able. You can maybe even imagine that you're drawing circles in the sand with the bottom of the stick. Kind of nice to imagine that we're all on a beach right now. All right, now I'm going to change directions. With that same arm, I can tell already that my arm wants to bend, but I'm keeping it straight. And I'm trying to remember, loosen the neck, loosen the tops of shoulders. And you really want to go through this movement for a bit. You want to start feeling fatigue in your forearm as you do this. Okay, good. All right, I'm starting to feel it. I'm also starting to feel it in my shoulders. My shoulder muscles are holding the weight of my arm extended away from my body, nice and stable. So that stabilizing force should come from the tops of the shoulders and also the bottom. So your deltoids and your lats should be stabilizing your arm. All right, now I've switched sides. I'm working through my right side. Right hand gripping tight from finger to pinky, starting nice and small. The goal is that I'm only articulating in that wrist joint. And I can tell, again, this is my non-dominant side because I'm less able to do this very well. Nice and small. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Change directions. Okay, if you feel yourself wiggling, if you feel yourself losing control of your stick, move back to a smaller circle. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, good. All right, our last movement is going to move up the arms. So we're going to do helicopters. Or propeller, if you will. So again, that same stance here, extended away, grasp in the middle, but we're going to be twisting the arm, okay? And what I want you to be thinking about as you go through this movement, stable arm, and we're rotating in the joint, in the shoulder girdle, okay? So if you put your hand up there, right where it connects, you're gonna be able to feel those rotator muscles doing their work, turning that bone in the joint. Now, again, my grip is really tight on the stick. I mean, I'm not gripping for dear life, but I want to keep my finger all the way through my pinky firmly grasped because that will encourage the rotation of the arm with the stick and not just the rotation of the stick. And you want that fatigue to set in that upper arm. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good. Okay, return to the other stick. And now if you need to stir the pot a little bit with that whole arm bending over to give a little bit of ease into that arm before we go on to the opposite side, your non-dominant side. Okay, I've grasped the stick right in the middle. I'm extending away, and I'm going to begin by slowly turning the propeller. And I start with thumb side up, and I try to get pinky side up both directions. And pay attention, are you able to get pinky side up a little bit further past the more warmed up you get? Now check in with your body setup. Make sure you continue to have a nice neutral spine, parallel hips, weight evenly distributed on both feet. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good. Now, those last two isolated movements we did with feet and then with arm are good movements to do if you are recovering from, let's say, a sprain or a broken arm or leg, and you've had to maintain stability in that joint, let's say in a boot or a cast. because those muscles have been atrophying and just sitting in their stabilized state for whatever it is, 6 to 8 weeks. So that sort of movement is going to be really good for getting those muscles back into working order. All right, now let's take our stick and grasp it as wide as we can. All right, and we're standing in our neutral stance, and we're going to begin with our shoulder dislocation series, okay? So draw in your breath. And as you exhale, begin to lift that stick in front and open your chest and allow that stick to drift behind your head and return. This is a slow and controlled movement, and we're focused on opening through the chest. And as we soften and open through the chest and the back, that stick is going to fall further and further behind your body, but focus on keeping your torso nice and still. Good. Now, if you find this to be easy at the fullest length of your grip, bring your hands in slightly, a couple inches on either side, and that will increase the level of intensity as you go through this movement. Another tiny addition that will increase the intensity if you don't want to bring your grip in is to think about what force can I apply to the stick? Okay, so the two forces you can apply is pulling the stick apart or pushing the stick toward the center, right? So you're either extending your grip away from your midline or pushing the grip in towards your midline. So experiment with that a little bit, okay? So I'm gonna open up to the beginning or to the front, and I'm gonna draw toward the center as I lift up. And once I reach the top, I'm gonna extend out and away. Extend out and away and press toward the center. Pull away, push together. Okay, good. Now let's take one arm at a time, okay? So on the right side, I'm gonna put the right end of the stick as though I'm putting it in my back pocket. I'm gonna open up so the stick is nice and vertical. I want my spine to remain vertical at this point and open up the left side of my body. Let the stick fall behind my hips, open up to the other side and return to center. So we're working in a circular fashion around our body, but opening up through our serratus anterior and through our lats. So you should feel like you're reaching up and over. Let's go one more time in this direction. And then switch up and over. Now, if you have shoulder dysfunction and this hurts, don't do this. Okay. Good. Okay, now we're going to finish with the stick in front of our body. All right, now we're going to work on a spinal articulation series. So we have the stick out in front of our body and we have palms facing out. Okay, with feet firmly rooted into the ground, we're going to slowly start twisting through our spine. And what I want you to think about with the stick is that the stick is kind of anchored to your hips here, and you're opening up, pulling back with the heads of the stick in your hands, okay? As though you're trying to wrap the stick around your hips, okay? Just gentle pressure as you start this movement. Okay, now let's move the stick behind our hips. Same positioning, but stick behind. Okay, now I'm feeling it a little bit more intensely in my chest. This is good. So as I'm rotating to the right, I can also feel it in my back on the right side, in my right lat. And the pressure of my hand in the front can gently push and aid in my rotational movement. And most of our spinal mobility comes out of our thoracic region, our T-spine that's up where our shoulders are, in that vicinity. Our lower back is our lumbar. Moving up from there is our thoracic spine, and up around our neck is our cervical spine. Okay, coming back to center. Now let's go ahead and put the stick in the crook of our arms and palms facing up. So you got a good view of that, okay? Feet, again, rooted to the ground, and we're just gonna start with slowly lifting and lowering the stick from side to side, okay? So it's just moving in a straight line, and I want you to think soft tops of shoulders, soft neck, and now instead of this movement coming out of movement of your arms, I want you to think about the pedaling of your shoulder blades driving this movement. So that you can imagine that your shoulder blades are moving and gaining in mobility in your mid-back, up and down, up and down. So keep that belly button in nice and tight, rib cage closed. Good, okay, now let's start pedaling. So we're drawing small circles with the stick. You can gaze over at the end of the stick if you need to. Again, think about your shoulder blades. There's muscles underneath them and on top of them that help support them in your back. They're the only bones in your body that don't have like a joint connecting them somewhere else. Okay, now change directions of your circles. And hopefully you're beginning to feel a little bit more mobility in that mid-back region. Maybe your circles are getting a little bit easier. Maybe they're getting a little bit bigger. All right, now let's extend the arms. And the stick is right about the shoulder blades. Okay, so now we're gonna do kayak arms. So I want you to focus on making nice big circles with the stick. But your hips should be nice and stable. Think about, again, the circles being generated out of the movement of your scapula. Okay, go ahead and change directions. Wrap your brain around changing directions. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and give you a side view of this. I'm really having to focus on keeping my pelvis still. Five, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, toward the end there, I really started feeling that in my shoulder blades. So I'm gonna set my stick down. Just open my shoulder blades, give myself a good hug as I extend and stretch that space between each shoulder blade. And then open my chest and close. Good. Okay. Now we're going to move into the bottom half of our body. Okay. So go ahead and plant the stick on your shoulders. Let it rest in your upper traps, not in your neck. Extend your palms and arms along the stick. And now we're going to hinge. So I want you to soften your knees, draw in your belly button. Zip your ribs together as you exhale and melt toward the mat with a nice flat back, belly button through sternum. Press your heels through the mat as you rise. And exhale, hinge again. We are not squatting, we are hinging. So we're sending your fanny toward the back wall, lowering shoulders until they're parallel to your hips as you're able. Inhale as you rise, exhale, descend. Now, as we do this stretch more and more, I want you to think about, oh, I can feel the connection from hamstrings to glutes and glutes into my lower back extensors. As I get softer and more pliable in my hamstrings and glutes, I'm getting further range of motion, and then I can hinge more deeply, lowering my rib cage to my inner thighs, maintaining a nice flat back, and then I can feel the stretch in my lower back. And rise. Okay, let's go ahead and lower the stick to our hips. Let's have a knuckles forward position, and we're going to go into our hinge and then push the stick up and over our torso. Okay, so we're going to get one more shoulder stretch in here, and we're going to hold in our hinge position. Okay, so we're going to slowly lower toward the ground. Nice flat back, nice hinge. Now the stick is right around at my ankles. My knuckles are facing forward. My nose is down. The crown of my head is lengthening away from my tailbone. Now I'm going to exhale and push that stick up and over my backside, over my back, and then I'm going to let my head hang. And the stick is hanging as far back as I can comfortably hold it. And then I'm going to return the stick out and away, back down to my ankles. Now I'm going to do one or two more of these stretches. If you need to get up and get some blood flow, re-regulate between each one, feel free to do so. And return back down. And exhale up and over the fanny, over the back, gazing through your legs. And return. Okay, now go ahead and come back up to standing. Let that blood flow, return to the normal position. So your face is no longer really red. Okay. Now we should feel pretty warmed up in a lot of major areas. Now we're going to go into our slap shot. So slap shot it comes from the visual you might have would be hockey, and it's probably a pretty good visual. But we are going to be incorporating kind of a full body stretch. So it's going to be lower body, hamstrings, glutes. We're going to do some spinal rotation movement, which all of us need more and more of. The more sedentary we are, we need to incorporate that movement. And it's going to go all the way up into our arms. So we did that nice warm up today with the arms at the beginning, and we're going to be happy for that as we go into this. Okay, so let's go ahead and put the stick behind your hips, and you have a nice wide grip. And I want a nice wide stance with your feet as well. Okay. So from here, we're going to go down into a bent over hinge position with arms extended. And I call this airplane. Okay, so what this is going to look like is here. We're bent over, so shoulders are parallel with hips. And keep your cervical neck, your spine area nice and neutral. Just gaze nose down at the ground. Okay. Then from here, what we're going to do is that right hand is going to reach toward the ground. And we're going to plant the stick in the midline, so straight down from your belly button. Okay, and it doesn't have to necessarily be between your feet. It can be at the toe line where you plant it, so parallel to where your big toes are. So plant it in the stick, okay? And then your left arm is going to be at the top of the stick as you're able, so nice long grip, and you're going to gaze up and over your left shoulder. At this point, keep your weight evenly distributed on both feet. Good, and pause here for a moment and take some breaths. Try and relax the tension you might be feeling in your neck. Good, and then unplug the stick from the ground, rotate back to the center and rise. Okay, we are gonna go through that stretch a couple more times with gradually increasing levels of difficulty. Okay, so that first one, we planted the stick in the midline. The next one, we're gonna try and drive past the midline or drive past wherever you were able to reach before, okay? So with that, soften those knees, draw that belly button in, zip those ribs shut, and hinge. Pause as you reach airplane. Relax, don't grip. Inhale, exhale, and twist, driving that right hand toward that left foot. Plant it in the ground. Again, keep your weight evenly distributed on both feet. Gaze up and over that left shoulder and try and lift your heart up toward the ceiling. All right, now unplug the stick, rotate back to the center and rise. So for those of you that feel pretty good mobility here, the further spread your feet are, so the wider your stance, the more intense this stretch will be, because your goal is to reach the head of the stick toward the opposite foot. So I widen my stance just a little bit here. So I'm going to drive the right end of the stick toward my left foot, okay? Then as I reach that position, then I'm going to bend my right knee, okay? So I'm going to further open up, and I'm going to put more weight on my right leg, and I'm going to lengthen my left leg, okay? So I'm going to go into this. You can watch or you can follow along. Ready? Inhale. Exhale as you descend into airplane. All right, now set your body loose, pliable, soft. Inhale. Exhale as you rotate, driving the stick toward the left foot. Gaze up and over the left shoulder, arms are nice and long on the stick. Now begin your descent if you choose to, bending that right knee, straightening that left leg. You're really gonna feel this up the left side, in the arm, in the rib cage. Good, now straighten that right leg so you're back to a neutral stance. Slowly unplug the stick from the ground, rotate back to center and rise. Okay, now I really feel a difference between my left and my right side of my body right now, okay? Give yourself a little break and now we'll go after the other side. Okay, all right, so feet slightly wider than my hips, palms facing out. I'm gonna exhale and go into airplane, shoulders parallel with hips. Exhale, rotate left hand toward the ground, planting the stick in the earth, gazing up the right shoulder toward the ceiling. And when I reach a position, I like to think about Where am I feeling this stretch right now? I'm actually feeling this a little bit in my right butt. Trying to relax the tension out of my ears, out of my shoulders. Unplug the stick, rotate back to center and rise. Shake it out a little bit. We're going for round 2. Okay, calm your mind, calm your body. We're not gripping and we're not tense. Exhale, hinge, shoulders parallel to hips, nice and stable in this position. Now we're rotating in the lower back, driving the left end of the stick toward that right ankle, gazing up and over the right shoulder. Arms are stretched as far away from each other as they can be. Lengthening from tailbone to crown of the head. And keep the weight evenly distributed on both feet. Good, now unplug the stick, rotate back to the center and rise. Nice. All right, one last time, more intense here as you're able. Okay, soft knees, hands extended. Inhale, belly button to spine, rib cage closed. Exhale as you hinge forward into airplane arms. Draw a breath, gather your stability, maybe walk out to a little wider position if you think you can do it. And then exhale as you push the left hand and end of the stick toward the right foot. Gaze up and over the right shoulder. Find a position that you can work with. And then slowly start to bend that left knee, straightening that right leg. Ooh, I am tighter on this side. I got to come out of that a little bit. Whew. I'm feeling it in my arm and my right serratus anterior, that lateral side. Relax, release, let go. All right, now press through the heel to make the legs even and the weight distribution even. Unplug the stick, rotate back to center, and rise. Good. Okay, I don't know why, but my right shoulder was bugging me today. So that's what held me back in that stretch. Okay, but hopefully that was okay for you. Our goal is to get a lot in the lower back, that rotational movement in the lower back. Okay. All right, now let's go ahead and bring ourselves down toward the ground. We've done an awful lot of standing up work today. I want to work through these last elements of today's class on our back in a reclined position, okay? So the first one that I'm gonna do, this doesn't necessarily involve the stick, and at this point, find your yoga blocks, and you can move the stick out of the way or whatever stabilizers you have, and find your yoga strap. Okay. Now, in terms of areas that we tend to need to stretch, all of them, obviously, but many of my clients come to me and say, Jen, my hamstrings are really tight, which is true. We generally don't spend time stretching our hamstrings, lengthening them. We may be stretching our back as we stretch and yawn first thing in the morning, but we don't often stretch our hamstrings. And correspondingly, we also don't stretch our quads. And as we age and our knees give us more trouble, we tend to stretch our quads even less because it may hurt. Okay, so this next stretch is one that we would do in the morning or at night where we're in bed. And so this is going to simulate our pillow. And I'm curled up here on the floor, and I'm going to use my yoga block as though it were a pillow. And I'm going to I'm on my right side and I'm going to use my left hand and grasp my left ankle. Okay, now let's be specific about what our goal is here to stretch our quad, okay? So my right leg is extended down from my hip. I'm grasping my left ankle and I want to return my knee in parallel. My left knee is going to be in parallel to my right knee. Okay, and then I want to make a conscious decision to relax my hamstring. Even though my hamstring muscle, the muscle in the back of my leg, is in a shortened position right now, he's not actively contracting. He's just shortened, okay? So tell him to be quiet and go to sleep, okay? So right now, what I'm doing is I'm pulling my heel toward my fanny. My knees are in parallel. And as I mentioned, this could be a really good stretch that you do in bed. But it is kind of important to maximize the stretch, to have your knee in line with your shoulder and hip, so extending in a straight line down. Okay, then as you feel this softening and becoming more comfortable, easier to do, you can pull your knee back. So you're arcing your knee away from your hip. It's behind your hip now, but still in a parallel line to the other knee. And now you're opening up even more on this anterior side, opening up those hip flexors, and hold the weight of that leg in your lat. Control it with that left lat. And don't grip, release. I just found myself gripping in my hamstring and glute. That awareness made me say, oh, okay, turn that off. Good, now release that leg. And for those of you, well, most of you are trying to maintain a view on your iPad. So go ahead and grab your yoga block, flip to the other side, and now we'll do the right leg, okay? So right arm's on top. We're gonna reach out and grasp that right ankle. Look down, make sure that leg is extended straight down. All right, knees in parallel, straight line from hip, shoulder, hip to knee. And then use that right lat now to hold the weight of that right leg in a straight line. And just exhale and release your gripping. You can extend that left arm out, palm down if you need to. Use it for better balance. Now I know this might not be comfortable for everyone on your hip. If your hip gives you a little bit of problem here, so I apologize for that. Hopefully you all have a yoga mat or a blanket that you're laying on to soften that a little bit. Okay, now as that becomes a little bit more doable, now start sending the knee back, okay? So it's no longer a straight line, the knee is behind the hip and you're opening up that anterior side on the right, you're feeling that stretch all through there, including, I call this your crease in that hip flexor and groin area. You're getting a nice stretch through there. Good, now relax. Bring the legs together. Now we're gonna flip over onto our back. I call this next movement positioning into our stargazer pose. So you can either use the yoga block here to support your neck if you need to. Otherwise, bring your head to the ground. All right, so now I'm positioned. My feet are on the ground underneath my knees. My knees are pointed toward the ceiling. We're going to start here with the figure four positioning. So bring your right ankle over onto your left knee. And then use your right hand and slowly press down just gently on the meaty part of your thigh, right below your knee, and think open the hips. Try and keep your hips anchored into the mat, but gently open. And from this position, we're going to go into our cross-legged piriformis stretch. So hopefully you have your yoga strap close. If not, grab it now. Now, as I unfurl my yoga strap, I'm going to be wrapping the yoga strap around the left arch of my foot. So I have that in place, and then I'm going to relace my right ankle onto my right below my left knee. Now I have the straps grasped in both hands, okay? And I have my elbows locked into my rib cage, and I'm gonna let my left knee soften, and I'm gonna slowly begin to pull my left knee in toward my chest. So I don't want to add any stress into my neck and shoulders, into my figure four. That's just an object that's moving in. And I should be feeling this stretch now in my right butt, okay? So as you're doing this, I know you're probably grasping those straps pretty firmly. Try and relax in the jawline. Ideally, you're contracting through your biceps to pull that figure four platform in toward your body. Keep your hips anchored. They might want to roll up, but try and keep them onto the mat. Good. Now release the straps. Bring your feet down toward the ground. And then cross your right knee over your left knee. And now take your left hand and place it on your right knee and slowly push that twisted pretzel, I call it, down toward the ground. And then take your right hand and tee it out to the side and gaze out towards your right hand. So we're getting a little bit of spinal rotation going back here again. And our goal is to get your shoulder blades all the way to the ground. If you find that your legs are untwisting, that's okay. They don't need to maintain that cross leg positioning. And hopefully you're feeling this through this sling in your back on the right side. We typically are hanging onto our stress in our inner thighs and the back of our knees with this stretch, so make a conscious choice to relax. Great, now let's untangle and return to center. All right, I'm gonna grab my yoga strap because we're going on to the other side. So I'm gonna have it nice and close. Okay, so I'm gazing back up at the ceiling, and I'm gonna cross my left ankle over my right knee. Now for me, this is my bad side, or less good side, as it were. So I know I'm not gonna have as good a range of motion, but that's okay. I'm gonna work with what I have. I'm gonna place the palm of my left hand into the meaty part of my left thigh and try and open up my hips just a little bit more. But keeping my scapula and my pelvis rooted, anchored to the mat. Long exhales. Good, now reach for that strap and let's wrap it around the arch of our right foot, okay? And then relace that left ankle bone right below that knee, okay? Now the strap should be in both hands, Elbows into the rib cage, bend that right knee, relax into the mat before you begin contracting to the bicep, okay? So you have no tension in your torso, and your lats right around your bra line are heavy into the mat. And just start slowly exhaling and contracting through the bicep to pull that right knee in closer toward your body. Heavy belly. Think belly button toward your spine as you continue to contract through the bicep. Let's take one more nice long breath in this hold here. Good. Now slowly release through the bicep, allowing that right foot to make its way back toward the ground. Then go ahead and cross the left knee over the right. You're going to extend your right hand out away from your shoulder. Did I say right? Left arm out and away from your shoulder. Your right hand's going to reach up for that left knee and slowly lower toward the ground. Now the height of your knees on this, whether you have them below the hip or above the hip as they reach for the ground, will impact the intensity of this stretch. So if you need a little bit more, play with that. Lift those knees up a little higher and then use that hand to help lower them toward the ground like an anchor. But try to keep those shoulder blades down heavy on toward the mat. And then you're going to feel this stretch right through this band. If you can't get your shoulders to the ground, go ahead and lower that arm a little bit closer towards your hips. And then you can kind of work your way up as you feel your muscles softening and getting more into the stretch. Maybe you can work your way up toward parallel to your shoulders. Good. Now slowly unwind, coming back to center. And let's just go ahead and let our legs lengthen away from our belly button. And our palms toward the ceiling, extended out. Just evaluate in your body what felt good today, what additional stretches you think you might need to add to your daily practice. Stretching really does become a daily practice where our body feels better the more we do it. Thanks everyone for joining me today. If you have any questions, stay on. I will get back together as a group here, but thanks everyone. Have a great Sunday. Bye.